After having trained with Khamzat himself, Caio expects Khamzat to dominate Robert Whittaker. Speaking to Submission Radio, Caio said, "We spent some time in Sweden with him, training with him for his training camp against Nate Diaz, the fight that never happened. But I was there training with him every day, was his main sparring partner for this camp. I think it's a very tough fight for Whittaker because Khamzat is a very, very great wrestler. And there's one thing about Khamzat that people don't realize too much, like they don't know what kind of level to expect from him. They know by seeing, but when you feel it, I think it's a little bit different. This kind of level of wrestling, of grappling. The best wrestler in the division, I think, is Khamzat, and we saw how he dominated Kamaru Usman. That is a great, great wrestler that fought like Damian Maia and didn't get dominated the way he was by Khamzat. So definitely a lot of courage of Whittaker. I think if he did that, he has something in his mind to this fight. I think he thinks that Khamzat is going to get tired or something like that, but let's see how good are the training partners of Whittaker that are going to mimic Khamzat's style. I think it all depends on that Whittaker is used to this level of grappling when it comes about his training camp, so he won't feel that much of a difference when the real fight starts. So I think this fight goes to Khamzat. I think Khamzat is going to dominate him in the wrestling, in the ground. But Whittaker was a champion though, so cannot doubt our champion. So definitely is a fun fight. I'm willing to see this fight for sure. I didn't see any other guy in my life that trains as much as he trains. Maybe that's why sometimes he kills his body and doesn't make it to the fights, but definitely a guy that out-trains everyone in the room. There was one time we did 5-round sparring. After his sparring was done, he did like 3 or 4 round pads, and then after that he did a 30-minute round. And I was like, what the f is this guy doing? Like, why he needs that? I think he needs that. He was used to it. That's the only way that he knows how to train properly, to be confident or something like that. So definitely a guy that trains a lot. He's very intense on sparring and all the sessions and all this stuff. He was very hard to spar with, but definitely a moment in my career that I developed a lot. I learned a lot from him, from his team. Jeremy Stephens has high praise for Conor McGregor. Despite the two having a bit of a heated back and forth nearly a decade ago at a press conference, Jeremy thinks Conor having part ownership of BKFC is awesome. Jeremy also discusses potentially running into Conor, as Jeremy is now set to have his second fight in BKFC on September 6th. Speaking to MMA Junkie, Jeremy said it's f***ing awesome. I feel like he's the Fertitas to the Dana White. He's the money behind the driving force. Anything Conor touches, it's gold. He brings a lot of eyes to the brand. One thing you can say about him is you can tell he really believes in this creative, psychotically skilled BKFC. He's really what it is. I feel like they're going to start signing real legit fighters who are going to have an opportunity to come over here and really do big business here in bare knuckle. I feel like he sees it the way we see it. It's a growing sport. You can't really mess around. You've got to be real creative in your craft. He comes from that type of, over there in Ireland, he's kind of a street guy. He's tough. I'm sure he's been in some street fights. Well, he has been. We saw him hit an old man one time, so he's been in some street fights. He loves it, dude. It's awesome to see him behind this and writing these checks. On potentially running into Conor, Jeremy continued business is business. We'll see the vibes when he gets there. I just go based on vibes, but as far as right now, he's behind it. He's writing the checks. He's keeping the business afloat, so I have nothing but gratitude for that. Like I said, Conor brings a lot of eyes. I fought on the cards UFC 189, Flying Knee Bermudez. These Irish fans were some of the best fans in the world. They were buying my family and I drinks and chanting all night, singing, shutting the bar down. That was like that at 189 when I threw the big flying knee. They're the best fans in the world. Conor is a big name, big eyes. Like I said, big business here in bare knuckle. Daniel Cormier and Ben Askren agree that Jake Paul boxing Mike Tyson is a lose-lose situation for Jake. Tyson versus Jake is set to go down on November 15th.
I think it's a lose-lose for Jake Paul.
That's how I feel. Yes, agree.
Because if
everyone
you beat
loves
up
Mike Tyson,
then you're beating up Mike Tyson. Like
and
everybody
you're beating up a
loves
58-year-old. Why do you want to fight a 58-year-old? He's 58. He hasn't been actively competitive in, I don't know, 20 years.
How do you think this came about? What's the conversation look like when a guy goes, I want to fight Mike Tyson?
I mean, maybe same thing I said is Bilal, right? Where, it's like, who's the biggest name that I can fight, who I could possibly beat, right?
With the less amount of risk.
The least amount of risk, yes.
Least amount of risk.
Yes.
Mike Tyson actually doesn't really need the money, so it's surprising to me that he's fighting.
Yeah,
it's very surprising to me.
That I think he does like what the Pauls are doing, bringing attention to boxing, and maybe he wants to. Yeah,
you said that.
Push that forward. I think that's probably most likely because I don't think he needs money. I think he's perfectly happy. He's old. Maybe he does. Listen, I told you this. I would wrestle another match or two. Like, I don't want to do a tournament.
But the right person, though.
Although I was giving out a lot of money. Listen, I had a great bike workout yesterday, Danielle. I pushed myself hard. And I said, Iowa wants to write me a check and find me some eligibility. I'm in.
What if Mike knocks him out, though? Then it's over. Then like where does Jake? I mean, where does Jake? Everything's done.
Yeah.
It would be an all-time backfire.
Islam Makhachev ties a kid's shoes together while grappling with him. Strickland agrees to spar a Japanese guy who brought him food.
I don't know who sent these, but man, thank you. Thank you for not poisoning them. They are delicious, and yes, I will spar you.
So the Japanese guy comes to the gym, brings me food, and says he wants to spar me. I don't know what it is with Japanese people, but they give you food and they try to knock you out. Kind of respect it.
Robert Whittaker believes Jared Cannonier is now in a tricky position after losing to Caio Borralho. Jared is now 40 years old, and Rob thinks at this point in his career, he's a gatekeeper for the top 5 in the middleweight division.
Honestly, I see him putting just about anybody underneath the top 10 in the dirt. Yeah, he is a really scary gatekeeper right now. And whether or not he has another rising or decline, if we're just going to look at numbers, odds are he's kind of hit his ceiling, his track, right? Yeah. As you said, he's 40 going on, right? It has taken a lot more damage. We've seen steadily the damage increasing. But, mate, he looked great for 40. Dude, I hope I look like that when I'm 40, right? Dude's still a killer out there. Like I said, anyone below the top 10, he coffins. Like, I reckon he could be like a top 5 gatekeeper, in my opinion, just because he's struggling with those guys above him. But he's beaten most of the guys below him. It's a tricky position. Unfortunately, he's 40, and there's no easy fights. Yeah. And he's getting older, and there's just younger dudes coming up, appearing out of nowhere, like Pokemon trainers, and ready to fight because they have nothing to lose. So, yeah. He's in a tricky position. There is only turbulent water ahead of him. But for sure. I think... And from my interactions with him speaking, he loves fighting. He's a true martial artist and he loves the journey. So I don't know what he does, but I can see him just kind of doing his thing until his body doesn't allow him anymore.
Michael Bisping believes Aljamain Sterling is coming off a bit salty regarding his recent comments to Sean O'Malley. Aljo recently compared Sean to Jake Paul for choosing favorable matchups for himself.
I want to see the best of the best compete, no excuses. Now, enter O'Malley, he fights one ranked guy, gets a title shot, split decision albeit, and this is not me hating, this is just calling a spade a spade. He's supposed to fight me next, which would give me enough time to prepare, but instead they say, oh, Sayudo's coming back, we want you to fight him. In the back of their mind, they're like, whoever wins this, we're going to turn them around for August. So he knows all this. I'm pretty sure he knows all this. And only O'Malley could disclose this, right? Or at least the UFC for sure knew that this is what they wanted to do. Give him the best opportunity that they could to become a world champion by hindering and stacking the deck against his opponent. It's just like, it's like the Jake Paul route. Stacking the deck so that you get these highlights or you get these favorable matchups and these wins to look as good as you do.
When you look at Sean O'Malley, yeah, there was a definite progression. You know what I mean? It gradually got harder and harder. But that's generally what you see now in the UFC. Back in the old school days, you'd win 2 fights and there you go. Chuck Liddell or whoever the case, you're fighting Kung Lee or a big name or whatever. But now with so many fighters, with the ranking system in place, and remember, it takes a long time before you even get ranked. And then when you get ranked, there's a logical progression most of the time. And unless you're a big star and unless you take on someone on short notice and get leapfrog from 15 to 6 or whatever the case may be. So I had no issue with Sean O'Malley. And then, by the way, when he did get a test against Pereira, as close as it was, he won that fight. And then when he fought Aljamain Sterling, he knocked him out cold. So I like Aljamain, but he's coming across as a little bit salty there, if you ask me.
Alex Pereira posts footage working on his judo and grappling ahead of his fight against Khalil Rountree.
Boa, controla. Baixa um pouco. Boa, baixa um pouquinho só. Baixa um pouquinho mais perto da cintura dele. Vai a cintura para ele não repor. Cabeça no chão.
And that's going to wrap it up for the news. Thanks for watching. For daily MMA news and content, subscribe to Full Mount MMA and click the bell icon to be notified when we post videos. Here are the 3 top comments from last video. These comments are in reference to the footage of Merab allegedly drinking and taking shots. The first one says, Merab has to be trolling. I have a hard time believing he has been so disciplined for his entire career and then randomly lost his mind before his biggest fight. The second one says Dana suspected that Merab was f***ing with him. Now he knows Merab is f***ing with him. And the final one says Merab training like a true Mexican. Those were the 3 top comments from last video. If you want to be featured in the next one, all you have to do is comment down below. And if you missed yesterday's news, click the video on screen right now to get caught up.